Hi everyone, I'm Mindy and welcome to my channel. Now, I'm guilty of this and you are probably guilty of this, where you see a stamp set or a card project and you buy all the supplies needed to do it and then you don't do it. So there that stamp set sits for 2, 3, 4 years and then you finally find it in your stash. So what we are going to do today is breathe life into your older stamp sets. So maybe you don't have this exact set, but what I'm going to do is pair it with a stencil that I bought after this release. Now the focus of the attention today is going to be on that U-nicorn stamp set. I'm going to pair it with this big hello that is a stamp and also has a coordinating die. I thought about using those scalloped rectangles. I didn't end up using them, but I am going to be bringing in the Bokeh stars. I'm going to be stamping this on Express It cardstock because I'm going to be using some alcohol markers to do my coloring. Now with this particular stamp set, that cloud can create an air bubble underneath. So I like to lift it up and then kind of push that air out. When you have air bubbles under open areas like that, what's going to happen is it's going to pick up the ink when you go to ink up your image. I'm going to be stamping this in the Tailored Expressions Oreo Ink and stamping it down. And you are going to see after a while that the center of that cloud is dirty. Every now and then I would still get some ink in there, but I just took a cloth and wiped it out. Now, just in case I didn't like the coloring on my first image, I am going to stamp it twice. Better safe than sorry. And I'm going to be doing this in a very simple color combo. The mane of the unicorn I'm going to do in a rainbow of colors. I am using my Olo markers today, which is alcohol markers, and I'm not doing any special blending to it. I am literally just laying down a line of color going in rainbow order. I did modify my rainbow just a little bit by bringing in kind of more of a teal color versus blue, and then finishing off with the purple. So we don't always have to add shading to our images, especially if they are fairly small, like the hooves there. I just added a line of light gray. And then I'm going to color the, what do we call that? The muzzle of the horse. And for that, I'm doing more of a coral color. I did use a 3-color blend there with the Olo markers. And then I'm going to color the horn and also the star. I'm going to give that more of a gold look. And then for the body and the cloud, I'm going to be bringing in some more light teals. Now for this, I grabbed my Copic markers. So it's okay to mix and match, or even if you have a shade of your Olo marker that you want to use mixed with a Copic, you can totally do that. I just really like this light teal for kind of that light blue outline. And I did BG10 and BG11, just adding a little bit to the outer edges, to the edges of the image. Then I used the coordinating die to die cut it out, and I also cut out a separate one from white cardstock. Express It cardstock is not super thick, so I like to add a layer to give it more, to stabilize it a little bit better, give it a little bit more thickness. I used tape runner, but you could also use liquid glue, and then I layered these together. Another reason I like to do this is because if I want to pop it up with foam squares, sometimes if the cardstock is too thin, I can actually see kind of through the cardstock, especially with a lot of white area. So adding that extra layer there really helps. And then I can work on my background. So I have a piece of white cardstock cut to 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. I added a repositionable tape behind it to secure it down to my grid surface. And then I'm going to bring in the Bokeh stars. So this is a 3-piece layering set. They are labeled down in the bottom right-hand corner, 1, 2, and 3. So I started out with the first layer and I'm holding that down with some Teal Tape, or any really low tack tape will work here. Now there's also some registration marks. There are 3 squares on each side. You can use your ink or blending brushes to fill that in. I like to just come in with a marker or a pen and fill that in. That is going to help alignment with our remaining stencils. I'll be doing my ink blending in a rainbow of colors with bubblegum, candy corn, pineapple, kiwi, cotton candy, and plum punch. So I will start at the top of my stencil coming in with the Bubblegum Ink, and I'm going to switch between all of the colors. I really want to have that gradient of a rainbow going down the front of my panel. So I'm going to blend these together. So that orange is going to go up into the pink a little bit. That's going to create a really pretty transition. Then I'm going to bring in pineapple. Now my poor pineapple, it is one of my favorite yellows, but it's also very dry. So I had to work extra hard to get a lot of that coverage in. I'm just going to have to break down and buy myself a re-inker. So I added that yellow. Then I'm going to come in with Kiwi, which is a really nice kind of bright green. And then I'll finish it off with cotton candy. I don't know about you, but every time I hear cotton candy, I want to think it's pink, but it's not. It is a gorgeous, gorgeous blue, which mixed with that kiwi, wow, it is perfect combination there. So I went ahead and removed the first layer of the stencil. You could totally just leave it as that. Each of these layers on their own or just mixed with one other layer looks really great. But I am going to use all 3 layers, and I lined up those registration marks off on the side, and I'm going to go through the exact process using those exact colors. Now, a little bit about why I'm doing this is, like I said in the beginning, we buy stamps, we may or may not get to them right away, but the thing of it is we're always buying something else. Something else comes out that we really love. We use it with the examples that were shown. But if we take some of our older stamp sets and pair them with something that came out a little bit later, it gives a whole new life to your stamps. Another example here is my inks. When the U-nicorn stamp came out, I did not have cotton candy. So that changes things too. You're going to get a whole new look on your rainbows if that's what you decide to do. And there's so many times that I personally have bought something, used it once for the exact purpose that it came out for, and then never touched it again. And when I'm cleaning or destashing, I find it again and I fall in love with it all over again. So maybe go through your stash. If you're looking to clean out and make room in your stash, go through and maybe find some of those favorite images and pair them with something that came out more recent. And that's just going to give this a whole new look and really give you more value out of your purchases. Now I finished that last layer of the stencil and I have this gorgeous rainbow stars on the background. I'm using a palette knife to just kind of help pry that up a little bit with that removable tape. And I just use my hand to rub away that extra or that excess stickiness to it. Absolutely loving how that rainbow came out, but I am going to add splatters. I'm bringing in this black ink to add splatters. Now, the black ink is pretty fluid. You really don't need to add any extra water down like you would for white splatters, but it's kind of a habit for me to add water down to my work surface. So I did mix a little bit together. Now, with it being mixed with the water, it's not going to come up quite as black. It's going to show more of a really dark gray. I think it's still really pretty because it still shows a lot of contrast. But if you're using this particular black ink, you really don't need to add any water to it. So I went through and I tapped my paintbrush to add those black splatters to it. But I am also going to bring in one of my favorite whites. So this one, I do have a little bit of water on my work surface. I'm picking up some of that white paint with my paintbrush, and then I'm going to add the white splatters as well. So once my background is done, I'm going to set that off on the side and work on a sentiment. I have the Big Hello stamp set. So these are red rubber stamps that you need to remove the foam insert in your Misti tool. I couldn't decide which sentiment at first that I wanted, so I'm placing them both onto some white cardstock, making sure that they're spaced nicely so I can die cut them out. And then I'm going to ink them up in the Oreo ink. So it's going to be just a really nice black sentiment to pop off of my colorful background. Then I used the coordinating die to die cut each of them out. I decided to go with that large hello, so I die cut it out multiple times from white cardstock, and I'm going to layer all of these pieces together with some liquid glue. This is going to create that dimension and separation from my background, and this way I don't need to cut a bunch of small little foam strips. I also want to add a smaller sentiment, and this stamp set does have a lot of smaller sentiments that go with this. So I'm going to use the word friend. Now, I put a lot of work into this background, so I don't want to ruin it by stamping crooked. So I brought in this transparency that has a grid on it, and I'm going to practice stamping. So I'm going to ink that friend up with black ink and stamp it down. I'm going to check to make sure that it is lined up straight. Once I know I'm happy with it and it looks good to me, I can clean that off with just a stamp chamois. I'll remove that transparency and then I can ink this up. Now this time I am inking it with VersaFine Clair Nocturne ink just because I'm stamping over a lot of blending and also splatters. And normally I don't stamp with the VersaFine twice because it always gives a good impression the first time, but I'm kind of going with better safe than sorry right now. I added liquid glue behind that large hello and placed it onto the card front. I put something heavy on top, let that sit for a minute, and then I'm adding thin foam squares behind my unicorn because it is already layered up once, but I did want it to pop off of the card just a little bit more. And I know this is already getting pretty busy, but I wanted to add some more sparkle to this. So I have these gold glitter drops, something like that. That I just put in this little trinket tray, and I start out by placing them. I don't glue them down right away. I kind of fiddle around with them a little bit, see exactly where they're going to land. Once I'm happy with that placement, I can go ahead, pick it up with my pickup tool, add a dot of glue, and then place it back over my dot of glue. I'll then go ahead and add this to a top folding card base. Now, I should have done this first before I added the word hello, because a lot of times what happens to me is that when I add my hello with liquid glue, that wet glue kind of, I don't want to say warps the paper, but it did kind of give it a couple little bumps that I wasn't really happy with. So I do suggest putting your panel onto your card front first if you can. So I just put a lot of adhesive down, added my panel to the front of my card base, and then I'm going to finish this off with some unicorn stickles. How perfectly named is that? That's going to add a little sparkle to the horn and the wand. I will have all of the supplies used in today's video listed down below in the video description and over on my blog as well. So I hope this inspires you to go ahead, dig through your stash, and just bring some new life into the products that you've purchased and really get your money's worth. Thanks so much for joining me today, and I'll see you again real soon.